Wicked. A really, really unpopular film from way back in 2024. Honestly, folks, I wouldn't be surprised if you hadn't heard of this one.
When it comes to popular.
Anyways, with the trailer for Wicked 2 coming out last week, I thought it might be a good idea to take a look into what started this entire saga. I mean, it sure doesn't feel like it in a world of sloppy seconds, but Wicked 2 will be a sequel to an adaptation of a remake of a remake of a remake. Yeah. Now, couple this with the fact that this is a story about the villain, the Wicked Witch of the West, actually being the good guy and misunderstood. And this story has an uphill task, to say the least. And it seems like it's doing a pretty good job at it. The first film and the Broadway musical are really well liked across the board. But we're not looking at any of them today. We're looking at this one, the Gregory Maguire novel. Disclaimer! You should probably keep this one away from kids. And by probably, I mean definitely. So if your kid runs up to you after seeing the second film and is like, Daddy, I really love Alphabet, can I read the book? And you're probably thinking to yourself, might not be a bad idea, it will get her to read a little bit more. Say no very loudly, because there is some weird sexual content in this book, some even involving children. So I'll be keeping that out of the review because I don't want to get demonetized. Even though this is my first video, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Anyways, enough of that, let's get into the video. The book starts out with a keen focus on Milena, Elphaba's mother. Her only scene in the film is this one passionate night with like a mysterious green stranger that turns out to be Elphaba's father. Spoilers about him ahead, by the way. Now, I want you to imagine taking that scene. My sincerest apologies for keeping that in your mind any longer than necessary. And drag it out for 100 or so more pages, and you've got the first quarter of this book. It was great, guys. It was great. I'm not entirely sure whose idea it was to start out a book with a character who wasn't sure if she cheated on her husband because she was always high when he was out, who actually went on to cheat on her husband, of course, just to make sure that she had in fact done it, with a character who's earlier described as looking like unevenly rolled dough, only to find out that her husband was really also cheating on her with him. But someone did. I mean, we get it. Milena likes this. But leave me alone, please. Milena is portrayed as this frustrated and angsty character. And believe me, I would be that too if I birthed a green demon baby whose first action in the world was to bite off the finger of the midwife who delivered her. The problem with the Milena subplot is that it doesn't seem to have much to do with the rest of the story. Maguire does try to use this bit to tell us how Elphaba is seen as a kid, how she's viewed by her parents as a curse for sins they're not sure they committed, by her nanny as this devilish thing with the potential for good, maybe. I really feel like this could have been done in at most 20 pages though. Because even though Milena views Elphaba as a curse, we have no indication in the rest of the book that Elphaba views her mother with anything but fond longing when she looks back. After our lovely time with Milena, we move on to Elfie's shiz days, where we meet up with a couple of her friends, most notably of which, especially at the start, Bok. In the book, Bok definitely has a more pronounced role than his televised counterparts. For one, and this is actually really strange, he's actually more of Elphaba's love interest than he is Nessa Rose's. Fabula really likes Bok because he's really charming and handsome and tall. And he's also a thief who stole her heart. Oh, hell no! But seriously though, he does steal a couple of books from the library he works at to help Dr. Dillerman complete his research. Speaking about our favorite four-legged professor, let's talk a little bit more about his central political philosophy. Basically what I'm going to call the animals versus animals issue. Confused yet? Well, don't worry, it doesn't get better from here. The simplest way I can explain it is that animals, capital letter A of course, are animals, small letter a, that are ensouled, so they can talk and teach and stuff like that, while the rest of the animals are basically just like Pluto in Mickey Mouse. If you're not already confused, GM insists that people can tell the difference between an animal and an animal by pronunciation.
What did he say?
This is one of the first examples of one of the weird quirks of this book. Like, some of its parts only make sense when you are reading it, which is fine because we're reading a book. The thing that's not fine is when you insist that it makes sense when you say it out loud. Like, I just ran crazy so many times. This is not even the worst one. In this version of the story, the wizard is trying to chase the animals, capital letter A of course, underground. Dillamond, obviously being an animal himself, is trying to look for a way to show everyone that people and animals are actually people. And he gets really close to succeeding, and everybody's really happy and excited and everything is going great, and then they kill him. Yes, they make an extreme example of the goat. Get it? Honestly, this is probably the deepest and most complex analogy I've ever seen. The problem, in my estimation, with the animals versus animals thing is that it seems to be left in the background the second Dillamond dies. I know people who like the book like to talk about how deep the analysis of the animals is, but I felt as though after our scapegoat friend disappeared, the animals issue became a convenient stick that Elphaba could hit us over the head with to show us that she's much better than the rest of us. Enough of that though, and back to our friendly neighborhood munch commander. Book Bok is also hopelessly in love with Glinda, and this is what eventually leads to him and Elphaba growing apart. He then grows up to be a pretty well-off farmer with a questionable marriage, who is no longer into, unlike his youthful version, the activism against the wizard. I think for Maguire, Bok serves as an example of people who get too comfortable to care about the troubles of the everyday man. Okay, now it's Glinda time.
Oh, actually, it's Linda with a G.
Alright, so the first thing I have to say right off the bat is that this is not a story about Glinda and Elphaba. The plays and the movie have gone for the emotional center of the movie being the relationship between Glinda and Elphaba, and more broadly, what happens when we are butted up against people who have different views and opinions and emotional outlooks and general worldviews than ours, and we still quite like them or even love them. What this does to us, what this means. The Maguire version of the story, however, is very heavily focused on Elphaba, and the other characters, if you can call them that, are sort of used as mirrors to her. And while that does save us from things like this, I think it causes its own problems, which we will end up seeing. Book Glinda is definitely a little different from Ariana. I mean, for one, she didn't steal somebody's husband, and is also someone who's much less of a leader of the group, but more like someone who's trying to fit in. This should, theoretically, make her a deeper, more interesting character. But she is still, how do I put this?
Blonde.
The reason people like Glinda in the movie, I think, is because they believe there's an actual real person buried underneath all of the glitter and glam. Although this version of Glinda does eventually become the Bippity Boppity Boo version, at that point she is all surface level. There is nothing deeper buried. But when she is a deeper character, she still displays the surface level traits, which makes it seem like all there is to her is the glitter and the glam. Take, for instance, where Dr. Dillamond dies. In the film version, Glinda changes her name to try to show everybody that she's better than them in a sort of surface level way. In the book, however, she does actually change her name genuinely. But that is a little strange because she doesn't seem to get along very well with Dr. Dillamond and doesn't really care for his political ideology either. And as a result, this feels out of place. We don't get that much more development with Glinda, however, which is a shame because after Shiz, we only see her 2 more times.
Oh, that's too bad.
On to Nessa Rose then. For the most part, she's pretty normal. She's not in a wheelchair and can even walk with the help of her nanny and Elphaba. She's still really beautiful. One itsy bitsy teensy weensy little problem. She has no arms. Yeah. I mean, you probably didn't need to know that, but I couldn't bear it alone, so I don't apologize. Maguire seems to have a very weird relationship with the character of Nessa Rose. And I know I said that I keep most of the sexual stuff out of the review, but this one was one that I had to comment on. GM has no problem telling us how wonderfully endowed she is, shall we say, while at the same time allowing her to suffer from having no arms and being epileptic, almost to the point that it feels like some sort of torture porn. Overall, Nessa Rose is this religious fanatic that, spoilers ahead, who cuts herself a piece of Oz and presides over it so badly that the people start calling her the Wicked Witch of the East, and we all know what happens to her. Saving the best for last, of course, it's everybody's favorite character, Fiyero. So remember the animals versus animals stuff? You know, like when Maguire writes stuff on the page that only works on the page but pretends that it works outside of the page. Remember how I said that that wasn't the worst one? Well, there are plenty of others, but this one might be a candidate. Okay, so brace yourselves. Faye calls Fiyero Yeah, I'm not even sure how to pronounce this one, to be honest with you. We know that his name is Fiyero, like with an E. So like, should it be Yero my hero then? But we know it can't be hero either. So have we just been saying Fiyero wrong the entire time? Should his name actually in fact be Fiyero? Anyways, leaving that aside, this version of Fiyero is far from the swashbuckling, charming Viscount of Bridgerton that we see in the film. In Maguire's version, he is, and wait for another shock here, black. Fiyero is much more shy and reserved in this version of the story. He is not accepted by everybody. He's sort of pushed around a little bit. I mean, his culture is perceived as stranger and weird by all of the students because of his race, perhaps, which is a little strange considering that they are in a school with trolls and flying pigs, but I digress. Fiyero's main role in this story is also as Elphaba's love interest. So Elphaba goes missing for a couple of years, nobody can find her after Shiz, and Fiyero discovers her at this chapel and proceeds to cheat on his wife with her. I wonder where he could have gotten that idea from. I wonder where she could have gotten that idea from. Then, because Elphaba is a terrorist, the wizard and his goons track Fiyero down and kill him. The description of their affair is the entire reason your kids should not read this book. Again, like the other characters we've talked about, he's not a particularly well-developed one. He does have some interesting moments though, but I will talk about those a little bit later. And you see, this is what I think the problem with the book is, the characters. I think a large part of the reason people like stories like this and people like the movie so much is because of the characters. Even if you have a good plot, people don't care as much unless you have characters that are interesting to them, people that they can relate to, or they can't relate to but still find interesting anyways. Having said that, it's perfectly fine to have a story where you focus on one character. The thing is that the character has to be likable and interesting and someone we want to succeed, someone who's not annoying. And is Gregory Maguire's Elphaba any of these things?
No.
If you want to find out why I think this, make sure to tune in for part 2, which will be out in a week. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Godspeed.
My heart above my head, though I see